look, this is what I'll say. I loved the episode.
Yeah.
But I do see what you guys are saying. I really do see what you guys are saying. So this to me is the reason, is the way that the show works. So the Grizzly stuff in the show, it's always been there. And in the past, there have been some things that have been done in The Boys that is just for spectacle.
Yeah.
The whale thing, like, you know what I mean? That's just for spectacle. So
the urethra shit, the whole orgy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing I'll say about this episode, though, is almost everything that happens in this episode that borderlines like too Grizzly or super hard to watch is undergirded by this incredibly emotional and well-acted stuff. The Homelander scene it's hard to watch. Him torture everyone and know that, but it's so well played. It's well played with the way that they react to him when they see him. They know that death has just walked into the room, and they're trying to appeal to the better nature of a being that does not have a better nature, a being that has been completely stripped and robbed of his humanity. Yeah. And even at the end, when the last lady, who he has some feeling of subjugation, or he has a feeling of authority for her, like she seems like an authority figure, like almost in a motherly way. When she comes in, he just barely reverts because he still wrecks everybody. He spares her, but he traumatizes her almost maybe worse than anybody else. I think that the scene, even though there's a lot of grisly, terrible things that happen, I think the scene works because it's supposed to be hard to watch because they're trying to impart to you, like impart on you, should I say, just how tough his upbringing was.
I think you're right. The scene that, I mean, again, we've watched The Boys for, 3.5 seasons now. I've been able to watch pretty much everything, straight face, been like, ooh, that's tough, but it's all been straight. The one scene where I legitimately had to turn away and cover my eyes was the lobotomy scene. That was nuts.
Yeah, I don't like stabbing shit.
I didn't like that.
I do the eye thing. I don't like the eye.
I don't like the eye stuff.
Talk about that scene, Charles, and what bothered you about it.
All right. So I think before I talk about that scene, I want to take a wider lens because Eric Kripke has been very open about the fact that I am not making a show for incels. I think he's been very, very forward about that, especially as this season, I think a lot of people, this is the season that is probably the most overt with kind of the mission statement. But if you were just a deep watcher, this was always baked into the show.
Yeah.
So I think the thing about the Sister Sage scene that I don't feel like works is that as a character right now, I don't know if she seems that fleshed out to me, where it's like she is supposed to be the smartest being on the planet, and the best way that she can deal with her debilitating superpower, which is the fact that her brain is always growing, is to give herself a lobotomy, look at fucking not Aquaman, and be like, hey, if you do this for me, I'll fuck you and we'll watch Kim K and Ray J. It was just like a scene that I was just like, I get what you're going for. There's a way that this scene can work, but I don't actually know if the show has laid enough track for me to either A, care, or B, feel like it was as tastefully done as it might have been in other seasons. And I know it's kind of
I mean, if you're looking for things tastefully done, you're at the wrong show.
No, because I think that actually undermines something that I think at its best, the show does really, really try to be some things are just Grizzly. And then other times, hey, even if I think that the Homelander scene went too far for me, going with what we know historically of Homelander, I'm like, narratively, this makes sense.
Oh, absolutely.
Narratively, I can see, how this is kind of one of the final moments of this character in this show, going back to where he was born and just seeing the place that shaped him into a monster. With the Sister Sage stuff, I was just like, I get it. It's comedy. Sometimes it doesn't work. I'm not going to boo-hoo about it. But it just didn't feel earned to me.
This is going to be a bit of an odd comp, but when I saw that lobotomy scene, I thought of the Captain America, my cells metabolize so much so I can't get drunk. This is her kind of needing to take the edge off of this weird, fucked up situation that she's in. Because what was the scene that we saw her in just before this? Where the Deep tries to put a move on her and she's not fucking having it.
Earlier in the episode.
Earlier in the episode. There's kind of a reason why she's reverting back to why the smartest person in the world is doing this dumb shit, is because she's still human. It humanizes her, and she wants to feel a bit more human, even for the sake of just like, okay, I need to literally knock out a part of my brain just to feel nice.
Yeah, it's like you come home from a long day of work and you put on like a trash television show and you just relax.
And how many times do we hear jokes about this online or things about like, lobotomies and all these things? Like it's a weird like discourse that we've come to where like
do we purposely lobotomize ourselves sometimes for the sake of entertainment?
Is that
no?
TikTok?
I mean, I get
too
the
much
metaphor
TV? Is that too much?
Like it's very.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Serious question. Are you holding this character to a different standard because she's a black woman?
No, I'm holding the story to, because I do think something that I'm always preaching is like, I think we have a tendency, because there's not a lot of black women or queer characters or anything, Muslim, whatever, when those characters are in a show, we almost treat them, we try to protect them. We don't want to break them. We treat them like glass. Like they have to, they're a role model and they have to do this and they have to be good because little black girls are watching this and da-da-da. I don't agree with that. I'm just like, humans are nuanced. It was more so that I'm like, for such a loaded type of like metaphor is like, hey, not only is the smartest being in the world a woman, she's a black woman. And even earlier in the show, Firecracker says like, well, oh, you're like one of the good ones. Like the show is doing it, like
it knows what it's doing.
It knows what it's doing. I'm just like, oh, for such kind of a loaded scene where it's like, this is what a black woman has to do. The smartest black woman and just smartest being in the world has to do to basically feel human. I'm just like, I just don't know if the scene worked for me. I don't know if
the scene working is one thing, but this is the deal. So, take A-Train, for example, who has been our black character in this show, besides MM, as a soup for a while. A-Train's story in the show is very typical in terms of he's a black athlete. He is continuously proving that he's the fastest, right? He's using his body in that way. He starts taking a drug to do that. He has heart problems. When you look at it, they really kind of take the the archetype, the societal archetype of a black man, a black male athlete, they deconstruct it, make him a soup, give him all of these crises of conscience, and that's the framework in which they tell the story of the character, even the movie that they have him in. The thing that got me about Sister Sage is the black women I talk to, and I would love to have a sister on the podcast right now, I don't want to speak for them, they often talk about the fact that in order to be in the world in a specific way and have a lot of fun and sometimes meet guys and sometimes just like to listen to some of the hip hop music that we listen to that is really misogynistic and violent, to be with some of these guys who have these views, they have to lobotomize themselves in a way. They have to kind of act like the thing that is in front of them is not the thing that they know that it is.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the thing that they run up against. Now, I doubt that Eric Kripke is writing this from, Jamila Lemieux's point of view. Shout out to Jamila Lemieux and Tiffany Dina Lofton and all my friends, Tiffany Cross and all of them. I doubt that, and Rachel, I doubt that he's writing it through that. But I thought that what The Boys takes is that type of idea and then overdoes it in this really grotesque way.
Mm-hmm.
They've always done that, and they kind of did it with her. But I am talking to a lot of people that have problems with that scene, and I'm telling you, they have problems with the scene. I'm not saying that you necessarily. They don't like seeing that sister depower herself for the deep. It's uncomfortable.
Yeah, it is.
But is she doing it for the deep, or is she doing it for herself and just letting him?
I think she's doing it for herself, and
right.
he just happened to come upon her at the right time.
Yeah.
They just don't like it. They liked it better when she looked at the deep and was like, I am great at quantifying, but you are unattractive to me in a way that I can't quantify.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they like.